Welcome to Payback with Silas. Every day, a new story, lies, betrayal, payback. Let's begin.
They say loyalty is a two-way street. But what they don't tell you is how fast that street can turn into a dead end when you least expect it. 1 minute, you're the guy everyone leans on. The next, you're a disposable file on someone's hard drive. That's how it hit me. Out of nowhere. My name's Caden Wolf, 32 years old, living in the heart of Austin, Texas. I had poured everything into my job at Strelite Innovations. My blood, my sweat, my nights and weekends. I wasn't just an employee. I was the guy who kept projects alive when deadlines were bleeding. Yet, it turned out, none of that mattered. It was Thursday afternoon. I was sitting in the corner booth of a sleek downtown cafe, my laptop open, coffee cooling beside me, when my phone buzzed with a message that felt like a gut punch. You're terminated. Clear your desk by Monday. No explanation. No warning. No. Let's talk. Just a cold command that shattered the foundation I'd built. The sender was Dexter Harlow, my boss, a man who barely looked me in the eye during our last meeting. At that moment, the cafe's hum turned into white noise. My fingers hovered over the screen, trembling. The word terminated echoed in my mind like a death sentence. But here's the thing, I wasn't crushed. Not yet. Because at that exact moment, I was on my way to meet someone very important, Alicia Quinn, the CEO of Nimbus Dynamics, our fiercest competitor. The woman who held the key to the next chapter of my life. I slid my phone into my pocket and took a deep breath, reminding myself this wasn't the end, it was a pivot. I was about to rewrite the rules. The air in the lobby of Nimbus Dynamics was crisp, charged with a kind of quiet intensity that I hadn't felt in a long time. The polished floors reflected the sharp angles of the glass walls, and the muted hum of distant conversations echoed through the spacious hallways. Denver was cold that day, but inside this building, it felt like the epicenter of opportunity. I walked through the revolving doors with a strange mix of anxiety and anticipation twisting in my gut. Only a few hours earlier, I'd been blindsided by that brutal message from Dexter Harlow, my boss at Strelite Innovations, the company where I'd invested the last 7 years of my life. The same company that just told me, without a hint of hesitation, that I was no longer wanted. I tried not to let it sink in. After all, I wasn't here to dwell on my past. I was here to stake my claim on a future. Alicia Quinn's office was at the top floor, a minimalist sanctuary of sleek white furniture, silver accents, and a panoramic view of the Denver skyline. She was already there when I arrived, standing by the window, arms crossed, her sharp eyes watching the bustle of the city below like a hawk scouting its next prey. Caden Wolf, she said, her voice low and precise as I entered. Thank you for coming. Her presence filled the room, confident, unapologetic, commanding respect without demanding it. There was something electric about her, the kind of woman who didn't just sit at the table but built the damn table herself. I extended my hand. Alicia. I appreciate the invitation. She shook it firmly but didn't release my hand right away. Instead, her gaze searched mine, as if she was already weighing whether I was the man who could deliver what she needed. I won't beat around the bush, she began, releasing my hand. I know about the message from Dexter. I saw it pop up on your phone this afternoon. She nodded toward my pocket, where my phone still buzzed faintly. I let out a breath, steadying myself. Yeah. That happened. She smiled, but it was not the kind of smile you get from a friend. It was the kind of smile that said, I see you. And I'm interested. Look, Caden, she said, crossing the room to sit at the sleek, black conference table. Nimbus isn't just another player in this game. We're the disruptors. The game changers. And we're looking for someone who can handle the heat, someone who's been tested. I sank into the chair opposite her, my mind racing but my face calm. I've been tested plenty. Strelite taught me that. But it also showed me the limits of loyalty in corporate America. Alicia nodded slowly. Exactly. Here, loyalty is earned every single day. It's about results, vision, and the guts to stand tall when the pressure's crushing. The room dimmed suddenly as the assistant flipped a switch, and a large screen flickered to life on the wall. The final match of the French Open, Rafael Nadal versus his longtime rival, was about to begin. We both watched silently for a moment, the tension of the match mirroring the tension between us. Nadal's relentless grit, his refusal to quit, his ability to turn pressure into power, it was all a metaphor for what this meeting really was. When the match went into a break, Alicia looked over at me with an expression that mixed challenge and invitation. "You ready to win your next one, Caden?" I met her gaze, feeling a surge of something I hadn't felt since that message arrived. Hope, excitement, a renewed hunger. "More than ready," I said, my voice steady. For the first time that day, I allowed myself to believe this wasn't the end. It was the beginning of something better. The buzz of Nadal's final strokes faded into the background as the meeting shifted gears. After a few more tense minutes watching the match, Alicia leaned forward, her eyes piercing. "Caden, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Nimbus is in the middle of a storm. We're on the brink of launching a product that could either catapult us or ruin us. I need someone who's not afraid to take risks, someone who can think 3 steps ahead." I nodded slowly, feeling the weight of her words. This wasn't just a job offer. It was a test of my guts and my vision. "I'm ready to do more than just fit in," I said. "I want to shake things up. Build something that lasts." Alicia's smile deepened. "That's what I wanted to hear." We spent the next hour talking through details, my potential role as head of strategy, the projects on the horizon, the high stakes involved. She laid it all bare, the challenges, the fierce competition, and the thin line between victory and disaster. I shared my ideas, my frustrations about the old place, and my hunger for real impact. Then came the unspoken moment. The message from Dexter still sat heavy on my mind, a cold reminder of how disposable I'd been made to feel. Yet here, with Alicia, I saw something different: respect, opportunity, even trust. When the meeting wrapped, she walked me to the elevator. As the doors slid shut, she pressed a button and glanced at me. "You know, it's funny," she said. "Sometimes, losing a job is the best thing that can happen to you. It forces you to find out what you're really made of." I smiled, feeling a quiet fire ignite inside me. "Thanks, Alicia," I said, "for the chance. I won't let you down." As the elevator descended, I stared out at the city below and thought about the message waiting on my phone, the cold words that were supposed to break me. Instead, they'd push me towards something better. I was ready to fight. Not for them. For me. The days after my meeting with Alicia blurred into a strange mix of adrenaline and silence. I was back in Austin, walking through the corridors of Straylight Innovations one last time. The same place where I'd poured years of my life now felt like a stranger's house. I kept replaying Dexter's message in my head, cold, clinical, final. "You're terminated. Clear your desk by Monday." But I wasn't just clearing a desk. I was clearing space for my future. Monday was looming, and with it, the inevitability of packing up every piece of my history there. My notebooks filled with scribbles, my awards gathering dust, the coffee mug cracked from late nights. I arrived early that day. The office was buzzing like any other Monday morning, but I moved through it like a ghost, unnoticed. Nobody approached me, nobody said goodbye. It was as if they'd already erased me from the company's story. I sat at my desk one last time, letting my fingers brush over the keyboard, the desk, the chair. Memories flooded in, all the fights to save failing projects, the moments of breakthrough, the camaraderie, the long nights fueled by takeout and stubbornness. I took a deep breath and started packing. But even as I wrapped my things, my phone kept vibrating with calls from the company. Unknown numbers, some familiar. I didn't answer. It was their desperate attempt to pull me back in, to shake me, to test if I'd crack. But I didn't. Because by then, I had already tasted the future. I knew what I was worth. Later that evening, I caught the replay of Nadal's win in that same French Open final. Watching him hold the trophy, exhausted but triumphant, I realized, like him, I was ready to face every serve life threw at me. My final serve was coming. Starting at Nimbus Dynamics wasn't just a new job, it was a complete reset. My first day felt like stepping onto a new court, where the rules were different, the stakes higher, and every move scrutinized. Alicia had arranged for me to meet with the core team, a group of sharp minds who'd been in the trenches long before I arrived. Names like Vera Calloway, the brilliant but notoriously tough head of product design, and Malik Trent, the CFO whose piercing gaze made it clear he measured everything in numbers and consequences. They didn't welcome me with open arms. Not yet. I was the outsider, the guy who left a rival company under a cloud. Trust had to be earned here, brick by brick. The first few weeks were intense. I was thrown into meetings where strategies were dissected with surgical precision. Every idea I pitched was met with questions, skepticism, even thinly veiled doubts. But I welcomed it. It sharpened me. I spent late nights poring over data, learning the quirks of Nimbus's operations, mapping out weaknesses and opportunities. It wasn't just about proving I belonged, it was about proving I could lead. One evening, after a particularly grueling strategy session, Vera pulled me aside. Her eyes held a flicker of respect. "You're not here to play safe," she said. "You're here to change the game. Don't forget that." I nodded, feeling the weight of her words settle deep inside me. Outside the office, life felt lighter. The shadow of Strelite's betrayal was fading, replaced by a quiet confidence I hadn't known in years. Even when the phone kept ringing with cold calls from my old company, I let it go to voicemail. Because now, I was playing for keeps. The first few weeks at Nimbus had been a whirlwind, but nothing could prepare me for what came next. The day I walked into the war room, a glass-enclosed, windowless fortress where the executive team gathered, felt like stepping into the arena. The tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. Alicia was already there, standing by a giant whiteboard scribbled with diagrams and figures. Her usual calm was replaced by a fierce intensity. Around the table sat the core leadership team, Vera, Malik, and a few others, each wearing the same grim expression. "Caden," Alicia began without preamble. "We're launching the Helix project in exactly 4 weeks. If this fails, Nimbus doesn't just lose market share, we lose credibility. And that means everything." I felt the weight of those words press down on my chest. This wasn't just about strategy anymore. It was survival. I swallowed hard and met her gaze. "What's the biggest threat?" Malik spoke up, voice clipped. "Strelite is already trying to undermine us. There's chatter they're planning a counter-launch within weeks. Plus, internal supply chain issues could delay us." Vera added. "Our design team is stretched thin. We don't have the bandwidth for major changes, which means the product might not meet quality standards if we rush." I scanned the room, noting the fatigue behind their eyes. This was more than a project, it was a ticking bomb. "We need to rethink the rollout," I said. "Focus on a phased launch, target markets where we have strongest footing first. Use data from those launches to refine and fix before a full-scale release." Alicia nodded slowly, considering. "Risky, but smarter than burning all our resources at once." For the next 2 hours, we hashed out every detail: contingency plans, PR strategy, resource allocation. I could feel the pulse of the room tighten around the plan we were forming. It was aggressive, but calculated. After the meeting, I found a quiet corner and exhaled slowly. The pressure was unlike anything I'd faced before. But beneath the stress, something else stirred, a fire I hadn't felt since before Dexter's message. This wasn't just a job anymore. It was a battle for everything I wanted to prove, to myself and to the world. Later that night, I sat alone in my apartment overlooking Denver's skyline, the city lights flickering like stars in the dark. I pulled out my phone, still buzzing with missed calls from Strelite. I didn't answer. Not now. My fight was here. As Rafael Nadal clinched another point in the replay I kept open on my laptop, I whispered to myself, "Stay relentless. Stay focused. This is your court now." The closer we got to the Helix project launch, the more every second felt like a spotlight burning down on me. It was no longer just about me proving my worth. It was about leading a team that was counting on me not to screw up. The pressure was a living, breathing thing that shadowed every decision. One morning, I arrived at the office before sunrise. The sky was still a bruised purple, the city quiet except for the hum of early risers. I grabbed a coffee from the corner cafe, the one with the burned espresso but perfect atmosphere, and made my way up to the war room. Inside, Vera was already pacing, phone pressed to her ear. Malik was leaning over his laptop, fingers flying across the keyboard like he was defusing a bomb. The rest of the team trickled in, faces tight with exhaustion and focus. "Morning, Caden," Vera said without looking up. "Got a vendor issue overnight. A critical component shipment got delayed." I felt the familiar tug of adrenaline. "How long's the delay?" 2 days minimum. If we don't reroute or find a local supplier, we're looking at major setbacks. I rubbed my chin, thinking fast. What about the secondary supplier we flagged last quarter? Could they handle the volume on short notice? Malik nodded reluctantly. They're smaller, but it's our best shot. I made the call. Get me their COO on the line. Minutes later, I was in a rapid-fire negotiation with a gruff voice on the other end, hammering out expedited terms, guaranteed delivery, and penalties for missed deadlines. I could hear the tension on their side. This wasn't a favor. It was business survival for both of us. After hanging up, I turned to the team. We pivot. We move fast. No excuses. The room hummed with renewed energy. I could see the spark of trust growing. Little by little, I was earning my place. But with trust came scrutiny. Later that afternoon, the company's board convened for a progress update. Sitting in that glass conference room, I felt their eyes drill into me like a jury. This was the moment to prove I wasn't just the guy who got fired and picked up somewhere else. I was a leader. I laid out the plan, acknowledged the risks, and showed the mitigation strategies. I could feel the skepticism, but I also caught glimpses of nods. The CEO, Alicia, gave me a small but unmistakable nod of approval. After the meeting, as the sun dipped below the Rockies, I stepped outside. The cold mountain air hit my face, clearing my mind. The phone buzzed again, another call from Straylight. I let it ring out. Standing there, under that vast Colorado sky, I realized this was my battlefield now. And I wasn't just going to survive. I was going to win. The Helix project launch date was inching closer, and every day felt like walking a tightrope over a canyon. One wrong step, one miscalculation, and everything would come crashing down, not just for Nimbus, but for me personally. The pressure inside the office was suffocating. People worked in a blur of exhaustion and determination, their eyes glazed but burning with purpose. I could feel the tension in my jaw, the tight knot in my stomach growing with every passing hour. 2 nights before the scheduled launch, disaster struck. A major bug surfaced during the final software test, something that threatened to crash the entire system under heavy user load. Panic rippled through the team like wildfire. Vera looked like she might break down, Malik was pacing furiously, and Alicia was in silent calculation mode, eyes narrowed, biting her lip. I took a deep breath, steadying myself. This was my moment. I gathered the key engineers, and for the next 12 hours, we worked non-stop. Coffee cups piled up, code was rewritten, systems were stress-tested again and again. The night stretched on, blurring into dawn. When the sun finally broke over Denver's skyline, we had a fix. A solution solid enough to move forward. Exhausted but victorious, I watched my team, some smiling, some drained but relieved. I knew this was more than a project saved, it was a test of resilience. The next day, at the launch event, the energy was electric. Clients, investors, media, all eyes on us. When Alicia handed me the mic to deliver the keynote, my heart pounded. But as I looked out at the crowd, I felt calm. This was my moment to step fully into the light. I spoke about innovation, grit, and the future we were building together. The applause was thunderous. I caught Alicia's eyes in the crowd, and she gave me a proud, knowing smile. That night, after the celebration, I finally let myself exhale. The calls from Strelite had stopped. The past was quiet for once. I was no longer the man who was discarded. I was the man who had rewritten his story. Months had passed since the launch, and Nimbus Dynamics was no longer the underdog, it was a rising powerhouse. My role as head of strategy had solidified. I was no longer the new guy. I was a leader, respected and trusted. The cold calls and texts from Strelite had faded into white noise, occasional echoes of a past I'd long outgrown. Sometimes I wondered what Dexter and the others were thinking. Had they realized they'd lost more than just an employee? Had they grasped the cost of cutting me loose? One afternoon, Alicia invited me to her office. The walls were lined with awards, press clippings, and photos of the team celebrating milestones. "Caden," she said, handing me an envelope. "This is your official promotion to Vice President of Strategic Growth. You earned it." My hands trembled slightly as I took the letter. Not just a title, but a recognition of the fight, the grit, the late nights, and the silent battles. We both knew this was more than a promotion. It was a declaration. I was home. That evening, I sat alone in my apartment overlooking the city lights. The phone was silent. No angry calls, no desperate messages. Just peace. I thought back to that moment watching Nadal on the big screen during my meeting with Alicia, how we had smiled silently at that message I had just received, the one telling me I was fired. Life had served me a new game. And this time, I was winning.